All right, so I'm starting the meeting and I'm gonna add you as an attendee because I expect that is where you are.
Great.
So I will move to panelists. You can hang up now, okay? Great.
And it is being recorded.
Hello, can you hear me?
There's
Janice. So we have
No,
to,
it's supposed to come out of the owl here.
or we
so-
can control it from the computer.
Yeah, we don't want it out of the oh, I see what's happening here.
Yeah.
Give me that, give me this here. Okay.
We do our meetings at the council with the owl and.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, oh, yeah, and it. Sandy gets it all set up.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to go up here.
No, we have Reg. When you have Reg, what else do
Now,
you need?
put your
Okay, great.
okay, there we go. Janice, can you hear us and see us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, it's coming, the speakers coming out of your,
Yeah, it's very echoed though, huh?
yeah, that's all right. We will select speaker. Here we go. Okay. Select now camera. Okay, Janice, go ahead and speak again.
Can you hear me? Check one.
There we go.
Better.
All right, if we have any echoes from anybody else,
What about Jessica?
Jessica,
She
all
may
right,
be here. She's leaving tomorrow morning.
she's not here as an
She
attendee,
may not,
right?
um.
We need somebody who needs a little assistance, maybe coming in the door there. Yeah.
I'm here representing CPTA.
This is great. All right, you're vice president, right?
Welcome.
You're vice president, right?
I'm treasurer.
Treasurer, okay. Okay,
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
so it's almost 7:40. We've had another exciting text before start to the meeting here, but I think we recovered. And so I am going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Needham Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, regular monthly meeting to order. Red Foster is here calling the roll. Go ahead. Oh, Ed Schreiber.
Penny Kirk, present.
Janice Bennett, present.
And then Lenore, are you present?
Eleanor Evans, present.
We can hear everybody, so this is a miracle.
How about Nada? Can you hear Nada?
I think we can hear everybody, but she's on mute here. Okay, super. Steve Merritt is away in Florida, but I dialed in. We representing our administration and our executive office will be Cheryl Gosman, our assistant executive director. I apologize to everybody who's dialed in on this miserable rainy night. We've had a tech support adventure that I just have to say for the record started with dead batteries in the remote for the TV. And literally, and a search for batteries so we could set things up. And we are so.
Do you have
Steve,
any other residents on?
so we do have 4 attendees. Alpana, Maiko, Paula Barrett, Ross Donald. So
Okay, good.
I think we can get the meeting started, which happens to be with announcements from the chair, and I don't have any announcements, so we can go right into resident community input. We'll start with the Cooksbridge Tenants Association and go on to other residents there.
Okay, I'm Sue Biapizo, treasurer, and God only knows what else of the CBTA. At our last meeting, questions were repeatedly asked about the food stamp information that is in the recertification packet, and I passed it on to Nada, and she was kind enough to send an email back to me explaining, what HUD needs it for. And I did pass it on to some other folks whose emails I have, but residents are still unsure or confused about this and would like to have clarification. And I believe that we have a meeting set up with NADA for the residents on January 26th, about 2:00 up here. Is that correct? Because I think Jessica mentioned that to me. NADA.
Yeah, that's correct. I believe she said it was later on during the day, but yes, we are gonna have a meeting up there. I don't know why everybody froze.
ACD or HUD regarding recertifications, could a notice or something, an explanation be put into the residents, worksheet packet to explain something, or to have a notice sent out beforehand, so when people get the worksheets that they have to fill out, they're not surprised. Is that something to be thought about? Nada?
You're asking for me to put together a packet with the recertification?
No, when, if there is a change in regulations of some sort, either with HUD or DHCD, with recertifications.
Mhm.
You know how you'd always send out a packet with the
Yeah.
worksheet, people to fill out, maybe if there are any changes, maybe that can be put on the front, so in plain English, so people would not get so upset like
Yeah.
they have.
Yes,
So
that's
I
no
thought
problem.
That
If
might
there's any
be,
changes, yes, that's no problem.
yeah, I thought that either do it then or do it, beforehand, but I think doing it at that time people would tend to remember it better.
Okay,
Nada,
And,
I think what Sue is trying to say is that when you send out the recertification packet, I know it does ask the question of whether or not you received the food stamps. It's a yes or no question, but maybe a little expletive or in parentheses stating that this will not appear or added on to your rent would
we
suffice.
just want clarification, yeah, that's all.
So,
yeah,
I-
well, I'm gonna have the meeting with you guys on the 26th, so I'll put together a packet for you guys.
That's excellent, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Two more, when submitting a grievance, what does the NHA consider a reasonable period to respond? There are no specific HUD regulation guidelines for this, and most LHAs determine their own schedule. I do know of people who have been waiting a month or more for a response. A month might be, kind of a long time to wait for a response from the housing authority to a grievance.
So, Sue, if I can jump in, that there is a time frame in the grievance.
No,
policy,
there
right?
isn't, no, it says reasonable.
Yeah, okay.
And
What-
that's it.
So you're asking what is reasonable then?
What would be
Yeah,
reasonable?
okay, got
Yeah.
it.
And it's the same for HUD and DHCD.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm asking, what would be a reasonable time? Because some people that have.
No, I got you. I was just clarifying your question,
Yeah,
so thank you.
they
Yeah.
they want to know when they're to expect a response.
Is that something you can address, Cheryl?
It's a policy of ours. It's a PHA policy, the
Mm.
grievance. And it's something that we should look at and update.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that it's more clear. Is that?
Okay, but
Yeah.
people already have grievances submitted now, and they've been waiting over a month
Mhm.
to get a response, so, I think it needs to be done.
I think it's
2 weeks.
good point, and since Steve isn't here,
Right.
also maybe can Cheryl take that and clarify that what the target is.
Right, and it's not just Needham, it's nationwide.
No, I understand, but we should have a target, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
And so that people have expectations, it's certainly not a month, is what you're also, I hear you
Right.
saying, right?
Could I make a
Yeah.
statement?
Sure, go ahead, Penny.
If someone's filing a grievance, that means they've already got an issue that's quite important. And to me, reasonable amount of time would be as quickly as possible and give an actual time frame, like 5 days, 5 business days, something like that. We recently had right in this neighborhood a mold problem that needed immediate attention. And it's that sort of thing that is the reason that people file a grievance.
Yeah, I think that, makes sense. And so maybe Cheryl, you
So-
can get back to everybody.
Yeah, so am I understanding that someone has filed a grievance
I, from around town,
around town, someone
yeah, both
from
in
one of our
the public housing,
developments
in the
Yeah.
public housing, yeah.
have filed a grievance? Okay, so that is something that we should look into right away. You're right.
Okay,
Absolutely. Okay.
one last thing.
Sure, go ahead.
With these meetings, our NHA board meetings, can any sort of resident-oriented news, for example, the executive director search committee or the resident service report, couldn't that be placed at the beginning of the meeting rather than later?
Yeah.
Because it could be 3 hours from now that you may get to it.
Well, and interesting, you should say that because as soon as we get finished with resident input, I was going to propose that we move the search committee agenda item up front because our search consultant, who hasn't dialed in, by the way, I still haven't him dialed in yet.
Okay,
I can send him an application, but maybe, another invitation.
Okay.
But if you can just get him to dial in as an attendee to the meeting,
he did say he'll try. but
and,
yeah.
and, I've been watching for him. So while we're getting Rick connected, and we will do exactly what you request, Sue.
Sounds great.
I'm going to turn the floor over to resident input. Ross, I see that Ross Donald has his hand up, and I'm going to, Ross, hopefully, I haven't done this for a while. Hopefully I haven't forgotten.
Yes.
Ross. Yes, we can hear you, Ross. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for letting us know who is in attendance. Although if you could repeat the names, I didn't really catch them. I caught Kalpana and my name, and I would add Jim Burke is in the room over here at 5 Chambers Street. So if you could
Okay.
repeat the names of the people in attendance, that
And the third person currently attending is Paula Berry.
okay, don't know her. All right,
Let's
and
go.
I would ask, since why can't we do this at special meetings? We had a special meeting, we aren't letting people know at those meetings. Is there any reason for not doing that?
I think we can do that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, I have no board package. I have the digital copy, but I've always been able to get a paper copy. It's very difficult to have it on the screen. I can't do 2 screens and easily, have the paperwork in front of me. So I don't know, it was always a regular thing. Anyway, and also there's a matter of having the information that residents are interested in. And I don't know what the requirements are, but it's my understanding that certain information is supposed to be made available to the residents at each development, such as maybe a resident's handbook. We do have a copy of the annual report. We don't have any copies of the current annual report that is now what we got 30 or 45 days to review it. Nobody knows about it. So I think that's the kind of interesting thing that should be available for residents, as well as, an update. I did get a copy of a resident's handbook, which was updated a year ago. The only one that was available was another one, or I think it applied for another neighborhood, but it looks like there's been updating to the resident's handbook, and that would be a good thing to have here, as well as the changes in parking, the dates on when certification starts, depending on what your location is, and inspections, because I think those have gone through some changes and people aren't really being kept up to date. All right, well, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Any comments, Cheryl, do you have for Ross?
No, I do not have.
All right. I do not yet have Rick Lico dialed in,
Right,
and I just sent him another.
Now, yeah.
I tell him I just sent him an email with a link here.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna call him, is that all right?
Oh, here's, no, I have something, oh, here it is, I've got him,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
all right, let me, Rick, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. Okay, here we go. And
It's no audio.
we'll get that fixed here. First, let's see if he is a panelist. And let me
There you are. I see you guys.
all right,
Nice.
good.
Right.
And I'm gonna allow panelists to unmute themselves here. And rename themselves and start video. Okay. Starting to come back to me. Rick, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you very much.
Looks like we have a little bit of a bandwidth problem with your picture, but we can hear you
It's
clearly. So
it's-
just let me,
it's better for you folks that my face is scrambled.
yeah. Give me a moment and just tee
Sure.
you up here. So, we're taking agenda item D out of order, which is the status report on the new executive search. A lot has happened, since, our last board meeting, which was December 15th and then January 5th. And I'm gonna, briefly summarize that and then, ask Rick to correct anything I say that's wrong and also give a further status report of where we go from here. So on the December 15th, we had 3 candidates that had been recommended by the search committee, 2 outside candidates and an inside candidate. And by the time we weren't able to schedule, by the time we were considering scheduling a meeting the following week, even though everybody was away for that week between Christmas and New Year's. But by the time we got around to scheduling that, well, we did schedule a meeting, two of the candidates dropped out. And we did not actually were able to schedule that meeting because of the time frame. So at the January 5th meeting, which was not for the purpose of reviewing the repositioning strategy, we added that agenda item. And the board voted to go ahead and bring forward the remaining internal candidate for an interview. And that was going to be the following Thursday. And prior to that meeting happening, the internal candidate withdrew their candidacy. And so here we are, having worked at this since April or May of 2022, and we're sort of back to square one. So with that discouraging introduction, Rick, can you please give us a status update from your perspective here?
Well, I think you just gave the update. I'm thinking about this today. I know the ad, and I will double check, but I know the ad is out in the industry websites, and I'll double check that tomorrow. New England, there's been a change in administration of the New England Narrow, Mass Narrow, Connecticut Narrow. I sent an email to every housing authority in Rhode Island and Rhode Island Directors Association. I know Steve was going to post it on National Narrow. What I don't think we've done is maybe touched FADA, Public Housing Authority Directors Association. And I was just at their annual commissioners conference, giving a couple of presentations, and I know it's not a cost. FADA does not charge to post, so I would suggest try FADA. I would also suggest that if you want to go ahead and post it nationally in FADA, that we may put
So we're having your audio being interrupted a little bit here, Rick.
some language in there that says relocation. Isn't that coming in? Sorry. You hear my voice okay?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you would just maybe turn off your video, maybe it'll ease the bandwidth.
Sure.
Fine. And we can, well, give it a try.
Is that audio better?
It sounds good so far.
Okay. My recommendation would be, let me double check on the regional and state within New England associations, make sure it's posted. And then post it on FADA. I don't think it's been posted there nationally. See what we get. I mean, you may want to put in there, which I think, talking to people who look for jobs, that relocation expenses from outside of New England are negotiable. I don't think anybody in New England who's applying needs to be given a reimbursement, but I mean, that's up to you folks too. I can add that to the ad if you want, but I would take the ad and get it out to FADA and see what, throw the line into that pond and see if we catch anything.
So we had a pretty intense discussion at our last board meeting of the situation. And to say that all the commissioners are pretty concerned at this stage of the game is an understatement. And so I'd like to just provide everybody an opportunity to ask you any questions and on how we found ourselves in this position, as well as make comments on how we go forward. And if nobody asks it before me, my question is going to be, what's going on and what do we need to do to fix it? So I'll just let you know that if that question doesn't already get asked by somebody who precedes me, that's it's a head scratcher and a major concern. So I'm just going to look down the table first, and Eleanor, Janice, I'll come to you online. I'm looking at Ed Scheidler, who's sitting next to me, to go first here.
An observation, Mr. Lico was requested to funnel all of his information through the chair of the search committee, and he has failed to do so. And he continues to direct his communications through to Mr. Merritt. And I think that's a violation of protocol. And I would direct him to resume communicating with Janice Bennett, our chair. He's answered the question about advertising, which we certainly would want to continue with. And we'll go from there. Let's see what happens.
Penny, do you have any?
I'd like to add to that, as far as I know, I'm not on the search committee, so, but I have heard from a couple of people that Rick was supposed to supply a list of questions for everybody, and that list has never been shown, has never shown up. So there were interviews, but they weren't the protocol that had been called for.
The same 5 questions that were supposed to be asked of every candidate were not provided to them. And I believe it's in the contract that they would be.
Well, it's not in the contract, but it's in the DHCD regulations.
Okay.
That all the candidates should be asked approximately the same questions, so that one candidate, isn't missed on something relative to another, candidate here. But Penny, any other questions or comments?
Not at this time.
Okay. I'm going to go to Janice. Go ahead, Rick. If
I'm
if
sorry,
you
it was breaking up a little bit. I can hear you now. I'll wait till the end to answer the
Yeah, I
concern.
thought, yeah, if you just keep notes, I think I'd just like to get, a lot of our intensity of concern is certainly because we have not been too successful, obviously, up until now. Janice, would you like to go next with any comments or questions or concerns? And you're on mute, Janice, if you don't know that. Still on mute. Maybe one day we're gonna go back to in-person meetings, I don't know. Janice, I'm gonna go ahead and go to Eleanor next, and then hopefully come back to you here. Eleanor, do you have any questions for Rick or comments or thoughts about where we're at here? Yeah, you need to go off mute too. So let's see if we have a text.
Okay,
support.
so it said, yeah,
Yeah.
it said it, the host wasn't letting panelists unmute, so
Okay,
I just
all right.
had a thing
All
to.
right, there we go. All right, thank you. I'm just gonna.
So a question that I have is, so I understand, we've posted over the months in various places. And I guess my question is there, a way to do kind of concerted outreach to, to people at housing authorities, who may not, who might be assistant executive directors or some other level at the housing authority, in terms of calling people or, building on contacts that Rick or Steve or Cheryl or whatever, whoever has that. I mean, because I know like sometimes, it's sort of headhunting, I guess, not just posting passively and waiting for people to contact us.
Okay, I'm gonna we'll do another round of questions if we need to, because this is probably our most important duty of a board of any kind of board of directors here. Nothing else from Eleanor? Janice, I see you're unmuted. Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, Reg, because you decided to unmute me because I did get the message. The host is not,
Oh,
yeah,
my
so it wasn't on me, it
apologies.
was on you. And
was
I really don't like the tactics.
I did not do that on purpose. I'm sorry. We had a terrible tech support launch. I wasn't supposed to be running the meeting at all tonight. And I'm jumping into the breach here, but I did not do that to you on purpose. I'm just winging it as I go along here. So please go ahead.
Okay, I'm just not happy with the with Mr. Lecco, and he has totally left me out of the loop. And Reg, it was my understanding after meeting with you and Steve that you would both mentor me on this project and this endeavor, and neither of you have done anything that I can see that helps me in this endeavor. As a matter of fact, I think you're actually going behind my back to keep me out of the process. So, I'm kind of calling you out of order here.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I've actually done no such thing, either behind your back or on purpose whatsoever. I'm sorry you feel that way, but.
Well, where's this new candidate that you have?
Every time you've reached out to me, I have responded promptly.
No, your
and,
emails get lost in your spam. That's your excuse. And who's the new
No, I've
candidate
never-
that you have that we haven't
I
heard
don't
of?
have a new candidate, and that is not true, Janice. I have a phone log of every time that we've talked, and I'd be happy to, I think we should maybe take this offline rather than this meeting. But I will commit to you, maybe not exactly tomorrow, but by the end of the weekend, I will document to you every single phone call we've had. And I keep notes and let you know what the topics of conversation are. If that's, I really want, I value your relationship. And I certainly haven't done any of the things that you have raised here in public. And, but can I bring back your comment to, we got to figure out what to do going forward. Is there any other questions you have for Mr. Lico or comments about the search process? With the ultimate goal in my mind of we need to find a new executive director, sometime soon here.
Okay, I am the chair of the committee. I noticed you had search committee and I was not invited to speak. I mean, right then and there, it tells me I'm being overlooked in the situation. And that's not the way it's supposed to go, Reg.
Well, the search committee has not been successful whatsoever up until now, and I think that's one of the things we've got to discuss. But you have the floor now. Please speak.
Um,
What is your recommended way of going forward? As given your experience.
I thought we had
last
a
May?
great committee. I thought we had a great committee. I thought we conducted ourselves properly. Evidently, it's too bad that certain candidates dropped out or got employment elsewhere. That's not the fault of the committee, but the fact is, we still have to have the committee.
So you're recommending that the committee go forward in its present form is, I guess, what I'm hearing you saying, right?
Most definitely.
Okay, great. Anything else? All
Not at this time.
Sir, Rick Lico, you're back on the hot seat, I guess, here, and I'll just add my question again, which is, we haven't been successful up until this point, and I've been on 4 or 5 search committees. Sometimes it's a search committee, sometimes it's the entire board serving, doing the search as a board. Still with resident participation and everything as required. And we do it anyway if it wasn't required. Why have we found ourselves in this position? The last 3 or 4 times we've wound up with not the bare minimum couple of outside candidates in addition to any inside candidates, internal candidates we might have. But usually we've had 4, 5, 6, 7 people with various levels of qualification, throwing their hats into the ring, and it seems to be a different situation that we have in the last, this latest search that we're doing. Can you help us out with any insight on what's going on and ways we should change on how we're doing the business here?
I'd like to make an observation before.
Sure.
I think it's very unfair to say that the committee has been unsuccessful. We brought forward 3 candidates to be interviewed by the board. It was not our fault that all 3 of them disappeared. We had, I guess, a total of 6, 7 responses. That's a result of the advertising. It's not a result of the efforts of the committee. So I think it's very unfair to say that the committee has not done a good job.
I'm sorry, I probably worded that badly.
Yeah.
But we have not been successful.
True.
I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but beyond.
But it's not, I'm not blaming the committee. I'm actually trying to find out what's going on that may be, going on that's completely independent of anything anybody could do, so that's, sorry if it was probably, go ahead, Penny.
I would also like to make an observation. Okay,
Wait, Penny, I just called on Penny, then your turn, okay? Go
thank
ahead.
you.
Okay, I'm not going to quote this person by name, but she's a director of very nice organization here in town, who told me that she's aware that the Needham Housing Authority has a pretty low reputation statewide.
Mhm.
And that must be reflected in the kinds of responses. we get.
Thanks, Penny. And we gotta be honest with ourselves. Go ahead, Janice.
And just to pick up on what Penny's saying, it begs the question of why we've had 5 directors and 3 interim directors in 15 years.
Yeah. It.
Okay, so it's not this committee. It's not this committee. Just
All right.
so you know. Thank you.
So how about all of us collectively, including all the board members who are not on the committee? I'm gonna say, I feel as one of those board members, we have not been successful in the last 8 months. Things appear differently to me. Things seem to be quite different than they were in the last 4 searches. And Janice, you go back many more searches than I do here. And maybe I'll just go ahead and give Rick, our search consultant, the floor to tell us, give us an honest update and assessment of how we find ourselves in this position. And then we can go back, if everybody's questions have been answered on that, then we can talk about where we go from here. So Rick, back to you. You've got the floor here.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize tonight would be an ambush on the consultant. To say that you don't have an executive director because you didn't get a list of questions, or one of the other comments that was made, I mean, just is demeaning. I worked with the search committee. In fact, Janice, correct me if I'm wrong, I took several calls from you on Friday nights late at night, and you raved about the work that I did and were very pleased with me. In somewhere between here and there, you're not happy with the work I did after we had already done it. And let me go further. You talk about searching and headhunting. I personally brought in Adam Garvey, Timothy, and Patrick Dover. Those were personal contacts from me that I brought in. Yes, you've got 6 or 7 candidates. It's a good number that we're seeing now. You can check with any other housing authority, the number of candidates they get. You had 4 finalists. There was still one took work elsewhere, 2 dropped out, and a 4th one is still interested in the position that's there. Now, why are you not getting the quality candidate you have? I think the discussion you just had probably answers that question. When I started this search, I spoke with Janice. I was sending stuff directly to Janice. Then Ed asked me to send stuff to him. Then Reg asked.
Let's do it one at a time.
I have the emails, Ed. And I will not be corrected on this. I have the emails from you requesting information directly to you. Janice requested the information to go directly to her as the chair. Reg, you asked me to send information to you. And finally, I said, look, you can't do a search this way. I'm going to send it all to Steve. And I sent this out to all of you and said, Steve can disseminate it any way he wants. How that's disseminated is not the fault of the consultant.
All right. Obviously, there's a lot of high emotions here. Yeah, you've got the floor. Yeah.
Be dealing with one person. Housing authority is not an easy board to work for. That's why you're having these issues. That's being very blunt and very honest with you. I did my job, what was promised, and over and above what was promised.
Rick, you never got back to me personally.
Wait, Janice, one at a time here. So, and Ed jumped in front of you here, so sorry.
I asked you, Rick, to communicate through Janice. Then about a week or 10 days ago, I asked you if you could forward me the references that Cheryl Gosman had. That's the only thing I've asked you for, except to please communicate through Janice.
All
Although
right,
that-
Janice, let me,
That's not the issue. Ed, that is not the issue of why you people can't get a candidate on who I'm communicating with. The fact that you can't agree as to who should be communicated with to one individual, meaning me, shows the internal problems that you're having that are seen from others outside. It's a very incestuous industry, especially in Massachusetts. Janice, you and I spoke, I don't know how many times on the phone. Several.
Twice.
Oh, it was more than that, Janice. Maybe you don't remember
Twice.
because it was late at
Twice.
night. Maybe you weren't, you know.
all right,
paying
so
attention.
let me
It was more
interrupt
than
here
that,
in the.
Janice, please. And you, Janice, you praised me up and down for the work that I did.
That's baloney.
Let's in.
Yeah, I don't have a reason to be lying here.
I remember.
Reg, if I may,
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
more than happy to drop out as your consultant. I will submit the bill to you, which I would expect to be paid in full. And if that's what the board wants, I'm more than happy to do it, because I'm not going to take my time again and have people sit here and actually lie and point the finger at me.
So I would like to interrupt and say, I detect emotions are running very high here in case nobody else has detected it. And I would like to ask everybody maybe to consider this is not the right forum for a continued discussion of, you know, like, and.
I want to have my
and-
say because
Yeah.
Rick has never directly contacted me. He has
That is
All
gone
right,
to
lie.
Steve.
Janice,
his
Janice,
buddy.
Janice,
Don't like lie.
Janice.
I can show you
have-
on my phone. I can
Janice,
show you on my
everybody,
phone. Janice.
everybody, please, I really.
I demand an
beg you
apology
here.
tonight.
Yeah,
I'm
well, you're
dropping
not
out.
getting
I-
one.
Bill.
I beg you that to remember that we're in a public meeting that's being recorded and this is all going into the minutes. And maybe that we've said enough to reveal, obviously, that they're part of where many different opinions and where the problem is, but that we have a very big problem.
Executive session.
Yeah, and we can't, not allowed to go into an executive session to have this kind of discussion, Sue, you know, by the public meeting law. So I'm gonna recommend that we pause at this point. Rick, I heard what you said about your willingness to withdraw. And you did present a plan for going forward. I want to ask you, I want to give Eleanor a chance to weigh in here before you part company with us, but is there anything more that you want to say with respect to what your recommended plan forward would be?
I have nothing left to say.
All right. I'm sorry that we found ourselves in this situation, this meeting. Eleanor, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
No, not really. I mean, I'm sorry that we're in this situation, and given that we need a new executive director and I would like to figure out a way forward to keep moving in that direction, but I don't, on light of this conversation, don't have any immediate suggestions or comments on how to move forward.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
Rick,
Eleanor.
I'm sorry, this has gotten so heated. I maybe think we should let people cool off, and when Steve gets back from his vacation weekend, and the board has maybe had a chance to have a further discussion, we'll get back to you here, okay? Is that okay, Rick?
As far as I'm concerned, unless I get an apology for the way I was characterized and finger pointed and lied about, if I don't have an apology, I'm done. I mean, you'll
Okay.
get the bill. I don't want to work with this group anymore.
Why
would
I have, you made
Janice,
that statement.
Janice, if I
You
may,
made that
if I may, Reg,
statement. No,
Reg,
you
if I
may
may.
not, you may
Reg,
not.
if I
I'm
may,
sorry, no, thank you, but I think we've all made our comments here.
Janice is waving goodbye on the virtual video. What kind of
Yeah.
professionalism is that to work with?
I'm sorry, but that's probably why I should invite you to, log off at this point here, and I'm sorry for what's happened here. Speaking for myself, I'm very sorry for what's happened here tonight, but I think it's revealed the depth of the problem that we have pretty clearly, which I guess is what we have to deal with. Okay?
I appreciate it very much, and I apologize to you, Reg, and I'm sorry that this took this turn too.
Right. Well, thank you and have a nice evening, what's left of it, best you can. Okay. Any further comments now that Rick is not with us here? Go ahead, Penny.
I would like to say that I asked, I think, a very innocuous question, and that was, where was the list of questions? I'm not talking loud enough, I'm sorry. That the search committee was supposed to receive a list of generic questions that would be asked of every candidate. That apparently did not happen, and Rick did not answer that question.
Well, that is a standard part of the process. I was not involved this time around, but that is absolutely true. It doesn't mean you can't deviate off one way or the other, but you want to ask the same 10 or 20
And
questions.
he had agreed apparently to send a list to the search. committee.
No, we don't know that.
You don't, okay, I thought he said he would send a list.
Which is, as Red pointed out, all of the content in the HCD guidelines.
Yeah, I'd be happy to show anybody. Oops.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'd be happy to show anybody, that after the meeting or, yes, we do. Let me raise your point up to, I think, the point you're making. And I don't know if Ed is agreeing, which is, there's a complex set of procedures that has to be followed in order to be compliant with DHCD regulations. And if you foot fault on that, then you wind up with problems down the road getting the candidates, that are being be selected, approved. So, yes, we have every reason, people who are not that familiar with any of us, those regulations, to expect that kind of consulting from the search consultant. Is that what you're saying? Yes,
Yeah, it was my understanding.
that's one example,
And it might have helped.
Yeah, there are 10 other things that have to be done properly as well, yes. And, go ahead, Ed, if you have anything.
No,
And Janice.
I had two direct communications with him, and one was requesting that he communicate through Janice, and the other was to have a copy of Cheryl's references.
And Janice, go ahead.
Yes, Reg, most importantly, I want to speak about the phone calls he's talking about. They absolutely did not take place. He's talking about late Friday nights. Friday night, I watch Dateline every Friday night in DVR 2020 on the other channel. If I got any phone calls, it was him calling me. I don't call people on Friday nights. So he's lying right there.
Well,
And he never
I
contacted me
talked, Janice,
directly.
Janice, please don't say accusations like that. I
Okay.
really appreciate it because it will get everybody into
Okay,
trouble
then
here.
let me rephrase. He is sadly mistaken. And on the other hand, he has never contacted me directly, maybe one time. Most of it all has come to Steve and to the rest of the committee. I was
Okay.
never the point person.
Eleanor, do you have anything further you want to add now that Rick has left the meeting here? Having listened to this highly emotional discussion.
Not really. I mean, I don't know what, if Rick isn't willing to work with us, I'm not sure what what options do we have in terms of moving forward and finding candidates? I mean, maybe are there other I know initially there was another search consultant that we had talked about, but then that person bowed out. Is this? Anyway, I just don't know what avenues are open to us at this point.
Without knowing the answer to your question specifically, I'm certain there are other search consultants available. It's a, it's a profession that, has many people pursuing here. And if there are no more comments from anybody else, I would say my observation is, I think we kind of discovered, without pointing fingers, I don't want to point fingers at anybody, but I think we kind of discovered that things are not working and that it's beyond repair.
I want to make another observation, Reg.
Or I'm sorry, I asked you if you had any further observations.
Yeah, but this has to be
I
said.
haven't finished
I think we
mine.
should go in a different direction because it's clear and evident that Steve Merritt and Rick Lecco have an ongoing relationship. So I don't think that's fair to the board. I think we ought to go with somebody independent of the board.
So I think that has actually nothing to do with the problem that we have here, because I'm sorry, Janice, are you going to let me get through one set of comments or not? Or without making faces and scoffing noises and accusing people, I think that's really impolite on your part at the very least, and unprofessional. So can I request that, and can you say yes, you're going to allow that to happen without the editorializing as I'm making comments here? Is that
Sure,
okay?
that's
Thanks.
fine.
I don't think two highly knowledgeable professionals in the deeply affordable housing field having a relationship with each other is our problem, number one, and number two, doesn't recognize the fact that I happen to know is a fact that this is a very small industry, and everybody knows everybody else, who's been here for years, people with experience, not outsiders, but they all get together a couple, 3 times a year for conferences. They have personal relationships, they have professional relationships, and I don't think that we're going to find anybody who doesn't have those sorts of relationships. And I also think it's counterproductive to have that expectation that you expressed, because it's exactly those sorts of relationships that is one of the superpowers of an excellent search consultant, where he has a Rolodex, or she has a Rolodex of people in the industry and can reach out and have personal phone calls and find that person, those several people, candidates out there that would be good for us. So I just wanted to say I completely disagreed with what you just said. And
Well, I have to disagree with what you just said, Reg, because 4 years now, he's brought us nothing but misery.
I'm sorry, you made a promise to me that you wouldn't do what you just did. Are you going to keep that promise or not?
I interrupted you, but I kept my promise.
Not, it includes, you interrupting me is not keeping your promise.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant making faces.
Janice, now you are kind of being disingenuous here. So before you interrupted me, I was saying I completely disagreed with what you said about trying to find qualified professionals to help us, whether they be executive directors for interim purposes or search consultants that don't know each other. And it is definitely firmly in the record, and our faithful minute taker over here, who's shaking her head, probably wondering how she's going to write this one up, will make sure that both of our points of view and disagreement are in the record.
Thank you.
And I think moving on from here, go ahead, Penny.
one small observation, if Steve had not been on the search committee, he sort of had two roles there, and I think that probably Rick gravitated to him because he's known him for 30 years. But as a member of the search committee, it would have been best if he, at least if he got in touch with Steve, that he get in touch with everybody else.
So I hear that comment as saying how we constitute the search committee going forward is something we should think about.
Possible.
Okay, and I hear, I think there's consensus that we should look for a new search consultant. Is that a fair summary of our discussion up until now?
I would vote to find someone else.
I would like Eleanor, hear Eleanor's comment on that. Or response.
Well, I mean, it seems like Rick is no longer willing to work with us. And I mean, so it's either look for a new search consultant or do the search ourselves without the assistance of a consultant. It would seem to, I mean, unless there's some other option out there that I'm not aware of. And I guess one question that I have is, I know, so and I know that the housing authority sort of sector is a rather narrow, more so say than, I mean, my background is with nonprofits and I'm used to, you know, lots of search consultants in the nonprofit field. But here it's, you know, we're looking for a very specialized, you know, somebody coming from sort of housing authority type background. And so I'm not as clear on, you know, are there as many search consultants that work specifically with housing authorities? You know, there are probably fewer of those than search consultants, you know, working for nonprofits. So, and I guess I would ask others in the room who might be more familiar with housing authorities and that network, you know, how we go about finding a new search consultant. And, you know, and I mean, I know Janice, you had concerns about the fact that Steve Merritt and Rick might know each other from their working in the industry. But, you know, it seems that to find a new consultant, perhaps, unless any of us know one, that Steve would be the logical person to, you know, recommend someone to us, or perhaps folks at Cambridge Housing Authority might know of other consultants, or Cambridge Housing Authority might have some ideas about how we might move forward on this.
Is that a question or a comment there?
Well, that came, I mean, maybe we should reach out to, you know, Margaret and see, I know that's not really in their scope of work for the, you know, that they're focusing on the repositioning, but if they have any informal advice for us or informal suggestions of other search consultants we might work with, that would certainly be helpful. So I guess that's one idea I have.
It happens to be that our interim executive director and our assistant executive director are the only, you know, senior leadership that we have. So it would make sense to me that since it's really our only alternative, and then Steve is widely known in the industry and very experienced. He's not here, you know, he's here on an interim basis, and I'm very grateful that he is. I'm very grateful that Cheryl has joined us to help, you know, do the three-ring circus that has to be done every day, managing this agency. And so I hear maybe consensus, and it can be turned into a motion. Let me just finish and then go ahead, Ed. That I'm just trying to summarize the conversation as we go forward, that we should task our executive leadership to reach out broadly and deeply to find a new search consultant as rapidly as possible, and report back to the board with their recommendations. You know, having reached out to Margaret Moran, anybody, Steve or Cheryl in the industry, and maybe to DHCD again, and Mass NARO again, and so forth, and as quickly as possible come back with recommended new possibilities as research consultants, and we not necessarily wait to the next monthly meeting, but if there's anybody or anybody's to be considered, that we convene a special meeting to do that.
I would add-
That's my sense of the
Yeah,
board,
yeah.
and you would add.
I
Penny?
would add that we not have an overlap, that someone like Steve, because he knows everybody anyway, does not need to be on the search committee.
Okay, well, we can decide that later when we go. I would comment on that maybe the whole board should be the search committee. Because it's, it's that important, and we're going on almost a year, but I don't think that's on the agenda tonight.
No.
The search committee, it's definitely on the agenda to have the discussions we're having right now. But given the importance of this, that's something that it's been occurring to me. Ed, you had something to say.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and interpreting correctly, Mr. Pelletier from DHCD suggested, or in fact insisted, that we have a professional search consultant to work with us, and he recommended two people. The lady, I forget her name, and Rich. And the lady, when we wanted to interview her, said that she had taken on responsibility with another housing authority and would not be able to devote time to us. So we chose Rick. And if we're going to look for another search consultant, perhaps we should go back to that same lady and ask her if she's now in a position to work with us.
Your recollection is my recollection too, and I would just add that to the list, but not necessarily depend on that being the answer.
No, I just, if we're looking to move quickly,
Yeah.
that certainly would be an avenue that we could explore very quickly to find out whether she's.
Yeah, I think she took something on the Cape. It was just very
Yes,
impractical.
she's on the cake, right?
Yeah, had something.
That's my recollection vaguely, but absolutely, again, we should make the rounds
Oh,
to everybody
yeah.
and.
In the meantime, tomorrow Cheryl
Because,
can try to contact that lady. Yeah.
I would want to comment, I didn't comment on this, but I think the idea of us trying to be search consultants ourselves, not a good idea.
No, absolutely, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, all right. Any other comments from Janice or Eleanor before we, do we need a
I have a
resolution on
comment.
this? Or?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, yeah.
Is that me?
ahead.
Go ahead, Reg.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Janice, go ahead.
I don't think the board should be the search committee and vote the person on. I don't think that's,
Great, we'll decide that, when we actually have a
Yeah.
search consultant.
I'd like to go with a new consultant if we could.
Okay, all right. To be continued here. Cheryl, you have, you're both yourself and Steve here tonight. You have everything from the board that you feel that you and Steve need?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Great. Well, that was a little, what time do we have? I told my wife and children that, that it might not be that long a board meeting, but obviously wasn't quite right about that. I think we're ready to go back to the regular board agenda here, so I'm gonna, and perhaps I think we don't need to dwell extensively necessarily on a lot of the other agenda items we have tonight, but that's just my opinion here.
We certainly agree.
Okay, so I'm at agenda item number A, review and approval of the NHA bill schedule and check warrant totaling $737.50, which you will find at page 9 of your board packet. Do I hear a motion to approve that warrant?
I move.
Moved by Penny Kirk,
I second it.
seconded by Ed Scheidler. Are there any questions for our Assistant Executive Director in terms of any of the expenditures we're approving here?
This is very nicely documented in our format that we're using.
I really like the new format too, and I thank both Cheryl and or Steve
Super.
or our new accountant,
Steve does a great job.
whoever causes to happen. It's the best,
Yeah.
best we've ever had,
Yeah,
in my many years on the board here. Which helps, reduce the number of questions. Yeah.
Is that-
All right, I'm hearing no questions. I will call the roll for a vote. Eleanor Evans, do you
Eleanor,
approve this warrant?
Eleanor votes aye.
Janice Bennett,
Votes aye.
Penny Kirk,
I vote aye.
Ed Scheidler,
I vote aye.
and Reg Foster votes aye. Okay, the next item is the HRH LLC bill schedule and check warrant. That's the High Rock Homes LLC of $35,813.20, which you'll find on page 29 of your board packet. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I move.
It's moved by Penny Kirk and seconded by Ed Scheidler. Are there any questions on that bill check warrant? Hearing none, all those, I will call it again. The roll, Eleanor Evans votes,
Aye.
Janice Bennett votes,
I vote aye.
Penny
Penny
Kirk,
Kirk votes aye.
Ed Scheidler,
Votes aye.
and Rich Foster votes aye. I will now move on to review and approval of the 12/15/22 board minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of that?
I had one comment, because I'm just a nitpicker, I guess.
Yes.
But, the very last thing about the motion carried 5-0 to the wrong.
Sorry, what page are you on?
The
Or
last page of the minutes.
okay, so that would be page, so it didn't get numbered on the page, that would be page 40, yes.
Okay. And
Or
because
the
of that,
adjourn-
but
adjourn-
There were
adjourn.
only 4 members of that, so it was unanimous, but it was 4-0, not 5-0.
thank you.
Okay,
And also, and related to that,
Right.
is when, with the roll call vote, my name should not be listed there since I wasn't at that meeting.
okay,
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Right. so it's when adjourned, I guess.
Yeah, I got it.
yeah.
Thank you, Penny.
All right. If there are no other corrections, can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So move.
I second.
It's moved by Penny Kirk and seconded by Ed Scheidler. I will call the roll again. Eleanor Evans votes.
Aye.
Janice Bennett votes.
Janice votes aye.
Penny Kirk votes aye.
Ed Scheidler votes aye.
Reg Foster votes aye. That carries unanimously. We are now at the interim executive or the assistant executive director's monthly report. Would you like to just move your way down the items here? Maybe on an exception basis,
Yes,
to see if there's anything you want to call out. Otherwise, we'll go to questions afterwards from the board members here.
that sounds good. That's a good plan. Sorry, guys. You all have a copy of this report? No? Yes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And are there any questions
On what, so on,
on any of it?
and, oh, so you don't have anything to call out?
No.
Okay, great, all right. Does any of the, I have a couple to ask about, but let me go to the other board members. Janice, do you, or Eleanor, do you have any questions or comments?
No,
So I just wanted to ask about the community room hours and security that are on, there's a memo from Steve on that subject on page 65
Mhm.
that indicated there was some concern about security after some late period of time and the rooms being open and theft and so forth. Could you
Yeah.
comment on that?
Well, Steve and I have been talking about initiating a Bob system for the community.
Well, hang on a second. Did everybody notice that memo? Maybe you could summarize what the memo says first.
So the memo really sort of speaks for itself. We have the memo. Steve and I was leaving a meeting one night about 10:45, and we had locked up. And someone came and unlocked the door and went in and sat down. So he was a little disturbed by that, the room was open to people after hours. Prior to that, Steve and I had talked about initiating a fob system, so that we would have the ability to lock the room when we think the door is open and it shouldn't be. So this memo really is something that will be brought back to the board as we develop sort of a policy around this.
My understanding is that all the residents have a key,
Right.
so that it's locked. And I tried to get in there the other day and couldn't get it.
Mhm.
But, so the fob system would have a sort of timing thing on it?
It
So
would,
if it work after 8 o'clock or?
Gary, can you speak to that, to the fob system and how it actually works? Unmute yourself.
So yes, what we're talking about doing is having it on a fob system, so we would control when the fob key would work, so we would shut it down. Right now, everyone does have, the tenants have access to get in. The problem is sometimes they leave the doors ajar, put something in the door. So now they're open overnight. When we come into work, we feel that people are putting stuff in the door. So if their fob system closes it at say 8 o'clock or whatever time is we decide, then the doors would not be able to be opened. And we would have access remotely to a computer to unlock it, unlock your fob and lock your fob down.
If someone leaves it ajar, how does the fob handle that?
I
Well,
can
that
answer
help-
that question.
Hopefully with
Go
the
ahead.
camera system too, that we've now be putting in down at seabeds and stuff, that'll eliminate some of it. But now we do have cameras inside, so we can start eliminating some of that at Chambers Street because those cameras are up and running.
I can answer that question because I've had these sort of key card or fob access systems. So when you put the system in, and by the way, it's going to cost some money to do this. So this isn't going to happen by any decision or discussion tonight. You know, there's going to be more discussion, but the way they work is that they have a sensor on the door. So, you know, it's wired up. Now they can be wireless so that, you know, you can open the door with your key card. Any resident can have a key card and they're very cheap. You know, they cost 50 cents. They're much cheaper than physical keys. And they can swipe it, you know, wave it at the sensor and the door will open up, no problem. And during the day, if it's during authorized hours, the door will be just left unlocked. But at some appointed hour that again needs to be decided, at say 8 o'clock or whatever is reasonable, the key card would not work after that hour. If a resident that was in there and stayed in there after hours and then left the door propped open, the sensor would detect that the door is open. The same sensor that unlocked it would know that it hadn't latched shut, and it could actually alert somebody to go over and, you know, remove the block or whatever, so it can be locked overnight.
Now, you just said that the doors would be unlocked during the day. That's not true, right?
No, it could be. It gives you complete flexibility to do that. So it could be just, you
So
know,
anybody could go in.
so anybody go in without their key card. It's very
Not
flexible.
Until the appointed hour.
Yes, that's right. Or you could set it up, you know, in some places, maybe not in need of Massachusetts, but there would be maybe concern on the part of residents in a downtown area that's more impacted by homelessness, let's say, that if the doors are just left unlocked during the day, that somebody scary might get in. So in that case, you would need your key card as a resident to get in, but it also means that only residents or the residents and their guests can go in and not just any Tom, Dick, and Harry. So it gives you all that kind of flexibility.
And then when it is locked, via this timer, does that affect the fire or police?
No,
department?
yeah,
You can still get in.
and you have to have, the fire department has to have the override code at any time, you know, and of course, maintenance and, the executive staff and so forth, so. Yeah, they need to get in
Bob
there. and
will
there's a
also
boost.
tell you who the last person was that was in there. You can go back on the thing, it will tell me what person was in, who swiped it last that was in the building.
Ah,
Yeah,
cool.
so, I think what Steve was intending and Cheryl was intending is just to say heads up residents and heads up, board, we're starting to look into this and stay tuned for further information.
Okay.
And I just wanted to call that out, Cheryl, because security has been a hot topic for the last few years at the Needham Housing Authority. Okay, I'm gonna skip over D, executive search, because we have done
Let's
that.
do that.
And go to report of resident services, which is on page 67 of your, Virgil, page 67 of your packet. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Cheryl?
Well, I've said to Lori, I
Hmm.
emailed her that I was really impressed by all the things that she's been able to put together. The gift cards and working with Roach Brothers and the other businesses, it's just terrific.
Yeah.
And the fact that Steve has, or somebody has made money available to have these events.
Yeah.
That was never something that I found available to me as a services coordinator. So it's wonderful to be able to do these events for everybody, and I was at the one that was here, and it was great.
Yeah.
And could I just use this minute to just say that I learned only just today, and I told Lori that the Needham Cultural Council has awarded us $1,000. And that will take care of the 3 events that I have planned for the Captain Robert Drive. And then on February 12th, we're having a wonderful performance for Chambers. Community room. Cheryl is making a big effort to do the advertising for it.
Speak up a little bit there.
I'm
Penny, if you
sorry.
can, yeah, that's great.
And I
Go
think
sit next to Penny.
Steve will get, I've never been up there to do saxophone. Steve, I guess, will help me get the Needham channel to
Yes, sir.
possibly send the photographer, and then Lori mentioned somebody I hadn't known, Julia Beauregard at the Hometown Weekly, might be
Okay.
able to do a little
That's right.
advertising with them, the photographer.
That's right. We're working on that as we speak.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
and there are 2 other events, 3 other events. One in March for St. Patrick's Day party.
Yeah.
One in April for David Polanski, and one in May for Cinco de Mayo party.
Your music around the world.
Yeah. So that's, Lori, I think will probably be reporting on those when they happen.
So any other comments on that, or there's a copy of the quarterly family newsletter on page 71.
Yeah, that's very cute. I
Yeah.
like that. That's great.
Thank
So
you.
I think we're all doing great there, Cheryl, and I hope you'll relay
Yes, I will.
those comments back to Laura. There's also on page 69, the Cooksbridge after-school program report.
Yeah.
I will jump in first and say I was very impressed to see it sort of gradually growing
Growing.
attendance.
Growing.
If you build it, they will come, I think. So any comments? I just want to note that for the record
Yes,
and give an atta girl in the direction of Jessica.
Yeah.
Is there anything
Great job.
to report? Yes, go ahead.
So we have received tremendous amount of support from the Elliott School.
Mhm.
In fact, Karen Bourne, principal, was here recently, just last week.
Mm.
And also Margaret Burgess. She organized a video Zoom call with Jason McCourty,
Mhm.
right, for the kids. And we have pictures of that. We'll send them around.
Who's Jason McCourty for people who don't know? that?
Patriots.
Patriots or
Patriots.
Dolphins? One or the other. They're twins, so I don't know who's who.
Football player is, I think, what you're saying, right?
Football player, NFL, and the kids were just thrilled.
over
by
the
that,
Zoom to
To
see
have
it,
the
meet
Zoom
him.
call and
Yeah.
speak with him directly.
Right.
So again, we've gotten a lot of support from Elliot on the program.
Great. I'm gonna just throw in one comment, not for any further discussion tonight, because I think there's a strong consensus on the board. But it being January 2023, it's not too soon to start thinking about one of the long-term objectives that's been floating around now that we've finally been able to relaunch the Cooks Bridge after-school program. We have our other constituents, our other residents over there in High Rock.
Yeah.
And to invite you and Steve and Jessica probably as well to start thinking about, how could we replicate
Yeah.
the program for the benefit of our High Rock estates,
Mhm.
families. And there's a lot that goes into that, and some of it's budgetary, but it's space, it's supplies. I think we've all had a very intense education on how much work and working together it takes to launch a program like that, based on what we just went through here. And so even though it's only 10 months, 8-9 months from now, that time is going to whiz by, and then we're going to be at the beginning of a new school year or so.
I'd like to add two things.
Yes.
Linda Hurley, who is the outreach person at Nobles, and I talked or emailed or something
Yeah.
fairly recently, and she said that she loves working with Jessica
Mm,
and she's doing a great job.
Yeah. Jessica's
And-
amazing.
And where is the band?
Where's Waldo? Oh.
All right, moving along here. Status upgrade on our external initiatives. First item is housing plan working group, briefly, Ed.
The document has been finalized and submitted to the select board and to the zoning board
Planning board.
and planning board. There is a reference for anyone who would like to see the document. Where is it?
It's on page, I didn't report it down, and you don't have page numbers there too. I'll find it for you while you finish your report here.
Is it right?
It
after
is
the-
there, yeah, it is there. Oh, no, it's right here on the agenda, on the
Okay.
IMF of the agenda
Yeah,
here.
all right. So the document is online at that address on the agenda under section F. And there's nothing else that really needs to be reported. The
Well, I
document's
think-
finished.
That's true. So the group has been disbanded.
Yeah.
It's about to become the official 2023 housing plan of Needham, Massachusetts,
As soon as the select board,
which is going to be this month because it's due this to the state. Because of the MBTA Communities
right,
Act, but most importantly, from our point of view, and thanks to the work that Ed and I put a lot of work in, and
yeah, you put more than I have.
we both, we both put work in, but thanks to that, there's very strong support for the Needham Housing Authority's initiatives, the Preservation and Redevelopment Initiative, and hopefully we'll see the benefit of that support down the road as we tackle these really big projects. So speaking of which, on number F2, delighted to announce after 15-16 years from the 2007 Needham Affordable Housing Plan that made it a top priority, that the kickoff meeting was held last Monday, the January 9th, with our new architect and engineering designing team, who's going to be working with us for the next 12 to 18 months to come up with a schematic design plan for redeveloping Linden Chambers. Right after that, one of the top priorities that came out of that meeting, just, was mostly meet and greet and organizational and initial tasks and so forth, but is to schedule a Linden Chambers tenants residents meeting as soon as we can get it scheduled. Have we got it scheduled yet or not?
Scheduled for Monday, January 23rd.
Okay, Monday at what time?
At 11 o'clock, there are two meetings from 11 to 12:30, and 12:45 to 3.
Okay,
So we decided to, or Joe, our Cambridge Housing Authority team thought it was a good idea to have two separate meetings because we are expecting a large crowd.
and
So
we,
we've given people the option to come at one of those times.
and of course, word about what's going on has leaked out. And there's been a fair amount of anxiety and concern, and so we want to jump on that absolutely as quickly as possible, though the actual team from our new consultants of BH+A the leadership will be there. They have, they've been in this situation many times before.
Yeah.
With similar projects, so it's all oriented towards getting off on the right foot with the tenant communication here. The other thing I wanted to report to the board is there's been worked on a press release with respect to this. It's been gone through several iterations. I think this is version 5 that we plan to release, but we didn't want to do it until we got that tenant meeting sort of scheduled and under our belt, because in these sorts of situations, even though I think tremendous good is going to come out of it, fear of the unknown is the worst fear of all. So we just have to be careful of that. But this is currently the latest draft that's being worked on. It obviously isn't yet released, but it will be. I will just note that we, again, Cheryl and Steve have been working on getting the good news stories out. So on and the Needham Hometown Weekly here, as people can see, we have yet another front page. I guess the full story about our new Ross Grant Awards and our new resident services coordination funding that we've been able to get. Again, thank you, Cheryl and Steve.
Also that the
Number
roofs are up for bid.
And there's that too, yes.
And today is the day.
Last
Yeah,
week. Last week.
so thank you for that as well. I want to report that, as the board knows, we had a special board meeting retreat with the Cambridge Housing Authority, not a retreat, but a meeting to review the near final strategy recommendations and options for getting a considerable amount of additional funding for our federal properties. And I think that was a very constructive meeting. But at the end of it, we all agreed that this is really a big choice, big topic. And particularly, we want to get more consensus recommendations from our executive staff and from the Cambridge Housing Authority. We decided that we'd like to see the final version of the written report, because some of us like to actually read a written report over a few times and make notes in the margin and so forth. That helps understanding these complicated choices that we have to look at. And we decided that we probably should schedule another meeting as soon as that written report is available, not less than 1 week after that written report is available, so we could do our homework. And I've been told to ask the board to look in their calendars for a 2-hour retreat. The suggested time, it would be, of course, an open meeting, a public meeting, as always, but the suggested time to do this would be maybe one of our Saturday meetings. We occasionally do about once a year. The Cambridge Housing Authority staff can make it possible either on Saturday, the 4th of February or the 11th. And that's with the white paper, the final repositioning paper with all the updated numbers and narrowed down strategy choices and options delivered to us 1 week before the 4th. So if everybody could sort of look in their calendar, that's sacrificing or investing, it's the way I like to look at it, Saturday morning. Location to be determined. Time frame is expected to be about 2 hours.
With breakfast.
And with breakfast, can't promise champagne, but yes, definitely. Maybe from 9 to 11, something like that. Is there anybody who can't do one of those two dates?
Can we do it 10 to noon? I mean, Saturday.
And we can do that too, absolutely.
What were
So,
the dates again?
I read it.
For Saturday, the 4th of February or the 11th of February,
Yeah, I can't do it the 4th, but I could do it the 11th.
okay? So.
I'm good with the 11th.
All right, Saturday, the 11th it is. Let's get Cheryl that back to Cambridge, and that's our, and it's expected, I think, that we will have all the information that we need to make a decision. So that will actually be a decision meeting if we conclude at the end of that meeting that we do. The goal is, we'll never get perfect information in this, but we'll get to the point of diminishing returns, and then a judgment needs to be made. And towards that end, I also want to say that we asked our executive leadership, executive director and assistant executive director and the Cambridge team to get together and see if they can come up with a consensus recommendation. And that meeting actually took place earlier this week. And I think, would it be fair to say, I think good progress was made.
Good progress, mate.
Yeah, so, we're getting there. All right, so, CPA funding applications. We have the dates of February 8th and February 15th. Those are Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. Those two meetings are reserved by the Community Development Committee, Community Preservation Committee, to review our two applications in depth with full presentations from all our consultants.
Is
That's-
that something we need to be there for?
You don't have to attend, but it looks good, so absolutely. If too many of us attend, then we're gonna have to post that meeting, but that can easily be done. But certainly you can watch the meeting, and we can, if nobody participates, we can just note that you are there as attendees and so forth. Applications have had an initial review and an initial approval from the CPC and town council this time around. So I think there's we're on a good track. That's again $1 million of additional funding for the Linden Chambers redevelopment activities, and about $245,000 for the seabeds and Cook preservation and modernization activities here.
What was those 2 dates?
February 8th and 15th.
8th and 15th, 7 p.m.
And that'll be at.
And there won't be anything else on the agenda. It's just dedicated to our initiatives.
And that's at,
So they've been generally meeting in the Charles River Room down in the PSAD, but it does move around. So,
yeah. 7.
and then lastly, we have page 75, we have our detailed monthly status reports to the board from Cambridge Housing Authority. Does anybody have any questions or about that? Yeah, the idea is to keep everybody in the loop as much as possible as to what's going on. Probably the most important thing to note is that our representative Denise Gerlich continues to be very helpful to us. There's arranged a meeting with leadership in the state House of Representatives that's going to be happening at the end of the month, just because we will be this year looking for a lot more money in order to get phase 1 of the Linden Chambers redevelopment done sometime, possibly starting in calendar year 2025. Or, so by our standards, the somewhat near future here. Okay, Next topic, NHA board succession, Pete Kirk and R Foster. I don't have particularly anything to update anybody with. How about yourself?
I'm making calls and I've made a lot of calls and I have not found
Yeah.
anybody yet.
That's what I've been doing as well, so to be continued here. All right, status update and internal initiatives. Looking at you, Cheryl, is there anything I want to bring to our attention here?
Well, Gary and I, the roofing project is out to bid. There's an addendum to that project, Gary. Can you just share that little update?
So they've reached out contracted. We had several contractors show up on site. We usually get a lot of people that bid on it separately, but there were a few questions. So we had a few addendums put out there. So we extended the bids until Monday at 10 a.m. to give them the weekend to reprocess any of the questions that were asked through bid docs from other contracts that saw the project.
I have a question, Gary.
Go ahead, Janice.
I saw some possible contractors walking around today. But Gary, if you notice, the roofs on my block in the front, they all look pretty good. But if you look at the back of them, they all look really bad, you know, environmental wise. Have you noticed that?
It's all on shade and what gets sun and what doesn't. These roofs have been compromised for over 10 years. I've been stating that since I got here 8 years ago. So even though they may look good, they're well over their life expectancy.
Yeah, and let me ask you this. You know how we had the blown in installation and it comes down through the vents. When they do the new roofs, would they possibly do any more? I know we're gonna do repositioning, but is it possible they're gonna put any new, you know, the regular insulation in rather than the blown in?
No pump insulation. This has nothing to do with the insulation. They're gonna strip it down to the sheaths and the roof. Hopefully there's no rotted plywood. That plywood will not come out and it will not disturb anything that's been blown in or in the attics. It won't come down to that unless it's a rotted piece of sheathing.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the internal initiative updates there?
We have a paving project that Gary is in touch with the designer for that project. The camera issue that Lyndon Chambers, I think we are resolved. Gary?
We're not resolved, but the 2 NVRs have been installed and Wi-Fi to that unit. They'll be out next week to connect the new NVRs to the new Wi-Fi. So hopefully by the end of next week sometime, we can have a better update. Their camera company is scheduled to come out next. We talked with them today and they're trying to set up a date for next week. Wi-Fi was just installed today, actually. So I reached out to them, let them know it was installed, and they're gonna reach out with a date when they can get out next week to connect the new NVRs.
What about Lyndon Chambers cameras issue?
That's what we're talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about seabeds.
We are still awaiting HUD, their extension for that project. We did have a designer come out. Very wonderful team called Abagon. However, we are waiting for HUD's permission to spend that money.
All right,
We
let me
have
just go back to
requests.
the Lyndon Chambers cameras issue. How long has this been going on? Is it about 8 months now? Or since the installation?
Possible, yeah.
Wow. Did we pay them too?
No, we paid them some money for equipment, but we've held back money until the job is complete.
Yeah, and okay. All right.
All right, we're, I think, done with agenda item G. We'll go to H, new business. I'm gonna add here also something I forgot to bring up, executive director's report, which is, we just received our 2021 audit documents, this being by the way, January of 2023. But the physical copies were just delivered the other day to the board. We have also the 2021. I'm sorry, those are the 2021 audit documents for High Rock Homes LLC. We also have the audit documents for 2021 Needham Housing Authority. It's our process, our custom to ask the board, once they've received those documents, whether they wish to have a presentation by our auditor. We are running way behind schedule on this because of the COVID interruptions to getting the audit done, at the beginning of last year, first quarter. But it doesn't, well, we don't always desire to meet with our auditors. But it's also one of the board's responsibilities to make that decision. I can ask tonight if everybody desires to schedule a meeting with the auditors, where they would come in and present the audit findings, or I can delay that question until next month, and people can decide then. But just for the record, we should decide one way or the other.
I think I would take Ed's advice.
I don't see the need for it.
Okay. Eleanor, do you have an opinion on that?
So when, I guess, I don't know, I guess I would be sort of curious to hear what it is that they, even if the audit is fine, to hear what it is that they look at when they do the audit. But I do feel like we have more pressing issues right now, so I could be persuaded to do that at another time.
Janice, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, we may be able to wait on that. But I had another concern. Did we decide whether we're gonna meet on the 8th or the 15th, or decide another
Yes.
date that we'll
We-
decide it on? Because,
The 8th and the 15th is the CPA funding meeting.
That's right. So those are the CPC meetings on our funding applications. We did decide we'd meet Saturday, the 11th at 10 to 12 make the final repositioning presentation and decision for getting the millions of dollars a year of additional funding for our federal properties, Seabed, Cook, and High Rock.
that, I'm talking about that's the meeting for the 11th. I'm talking about the other meeting for maybe the 8th or the 15th.
Those are not board meetings. Those are community preservation committee meetings where they'll be considering our funding applications.
Oh, so they don't pertain to us
Yeah.
as a board.
Well, it's not a board meeting, but the board is encouraged to,
Okay. I don't have to save those dates then. Good.
No, you don't have to go, you don't have to say anything, but board support would be appreciated. Okay, so back to the audit documents. I've looked through the audit reports, the 2021 audit reports. We have clean audits with a couple of exceptions. And I am comfortable if we don't immediately schedule the auditors to come in, as Ed suggests here. If there was some major fault or issue noted, then I would absolutely, I'm sure Ed would too, say, bring them in as quickly as possible. But again, congratulations to Cheryl and Steve for running a tight financial ship
And-
from a financial management point of view here.
Nada.
And Nada,
Gary.
I'm sorry, and Nada and everybody else, the whole team. It takes a team. That's right. Thank you.
Team effort.
Our last agenda item is that we received an open meeting request, a complaint from Ross Donald. I have the open meeting law requirements somewhere in here, right here, about receiving complaints. One of the process is, it just came in recently. The process is that the public body who receives it has 14 days to respond, business days to respond to it. It also requires that the board be notified of it, so that's why it's in your packet tonight. I've been told by Cheryl and Steve that they will be following up and answering the complaint. If any of the individual board members have information to contribute to the answering to that complaint, then they should contact Steve and or Cheryl directly.
Okay.
And
So
I'll
I-
just, yes, go ahead, Eleanor.
Well, I just have a question. So it says here that the chair must disseminate the complaint to the members of the public body, which is happening, that we must meet to review it, which is what we're doing now. After review, but within 14 days, the public body must respond to the complaint in writing,
Mhm.
and et cetera. And so the public body, I assume therefore, is the Board of Commissioners. And so and I guess I'm just curious what the process is for, so I know you said that Steve and Cheryl will develop a response, but then how will like us as the public body be the ones responding? Like, will there be a letter, or how does that work?
Formal letter back that, where the executive director is responding on behalf of the board.
Well, I see, and it does say, I see where it says that the body may delegate this responsibility to an individual member of the public body, its council or a staff member, but only after we've met to review the complaint.
Right. And just in the interest of transparency for everybody, one of the requirements of the open meeting law is the complaints need to be timely filed, and timely filed is defined as 30 days from the date of the violation, or the date the complainant could have reasonably known of the violation. And so a fair amount of the complaint involves does not meet the timeliness test. The only part of the complaint that meets the timeliness test are the comments with respect to the January 5th 2023 board meeting. So that's a fairly clear, bright line here. It's if you have any input to provide to Steve with respect to that portion of the complaint, then please go ahead and provide it directly.
So do we need to have a vote to delegate the responsibility to respond to the complaint to Steve?
Why don't you go ahead and make that motion, Eleanor?
Okay, yeah, so I move that that the board vote to delegate the responsibility to respond to the complaint to the Housing Authority's executive director.
Do I have a second? We have a second from Janice Bennett. I think beat you to the punch here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Eleanor Evans votes.
Aye.
Janice Bennett votes.
Aye.
Lee Kirk,
Votes aye.
Ed Schneider votes aye.
and Reg Foster votes aye. Thank you very much. Okay, that is the last item on our agenda, I believe. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
No,
Oh, you have one? Oh, yes, go ahead.
we discussed the possibility of contacting the executive search consultant, the lady on the Cape.
Yes,
And are we authorizing Cheryl to move in that direction?
Cheryl and Steve, yes,
Yeah.
right.
Well, is he back tomorrow? No,
He's back on Tuesday.
Yeah, but we can follow up tomorrow.
I mean, just call and say,
Yeah.
are you interested? That's
Yeah,
all.
right. But, we should weed out with all deliberate speed, meaning ASAP to everybody we can think of.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
just, that's one quick one we can get to.
Right, so, I would say, I'm sorry to, but I think this is worth prolonging the adjournment motion here. That I really would like to get a full list of choices, new choices, not just necessarily rely on that particular
Right.
Yeah,
person.
that's fine.
And so you're not, yeah.
No, I'm not saying that one only,
Okay.
I'm just saying we
Right.
get to it quickly now. If I remember correctly, Mr. Pelletier he gave us the two names. And we, in our discussion, favored that lady over Rick. But then she said she wasn't available. And so we chose Rick.
I don't think we ever got that far, to my recollection. She pulled out before we could even interview
No,
her.
and yes, before we could interview her, as a group, when we were discussing it, we were all quite impressed. If I remember correctly, we were all quite.
Were the
impressed with her.
credentials, yeah, so but we wanted to interview both.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think, certainly I didn't express a preference one way or the other until I had a chance to talk to them here. Yeah.
But might there be somebody else other than her as well?
Yes, there might. So, hey, this is, gonna start ruling this out of order for a motion to adjourn, but go ahead. One more, everybody gets one more comment, okay?
While I was working for Needham Housing, at one point, a young man was hired as an assistant director, I'm quite sure. And he was a lovely guy. He lived in Rhode Island, I think. He found that Peg Clancy had made a mistake and he told her about it and she fired him.
Hmm.
Is it possible that law schools might be, it might be an appropriate thing to have someone working at Needham Housing who's a young lawyer? Doesn't want to practice law, but knows to,
Can I have permission to have the last word here?
Again, probably gonna.
But look, there are many skills going into being a great executive director, and one of them certainly is knowing your way around the law, because you do get into those situations, but there are many other qualities and qualifications that we need as well, in my opinion, and that is the last word. And now I'm gonna call, let's see, we had a motion was made by Penny to
I
adjourn
did, okay.
and seconded by who?
Anybody, I'll second it.
Ed to adjourn. Eleanor Evans, can we adjourn this meeting, please?
Aye.
Janice,
I'm sorry for my antics.
thank you for saying that.
Says aye.
Ed Scheidler, aye.
And Reg Foster says, I
Amen.
accept what you just said. Thank you for saying it. Aye.
You know I'm passionate.
I do know that.
Thank
All
you
right.
and good night.
Good night.
Good night, all. Have a great evening. What's left of it.
Yeah.